You are listening to The Material Revolution, a podcast dedicated to building a better understanding of and relationship to textiles, fibers, and resources. I am your host, Catherine Susi, and I'm sitting down with artists, designers, educators, scientists, and creative thinkers from around the globe about their specialized knowledge and experience in working with fibers, processes, techniques, and technologies with the intention to create awareness, inspire knowledge, address responsible practices, encourage creativity, and to build a material community. So I welcome you to tune in and listen to those who are contributing towards change and a material revolution. Before we dive into today's interview and content, you can find us at www.thematerialrevolution.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Material Revolution. And to view some of our video interviews, hop on over to our YouTube channel.
Hi, I'm Billie van Katwijk. I'm a designer and I have my own studio Billie van Katwijk. And I'm based in Amsterdam, and that's also where I'm calling from now.
Well, thank you so much, Billie. I'm actually really excited to speak with you today because I am really intrigued by your practice, mostly because of your unconventional approach to materials and your material concepts. But I also think it's because of your alternate solutions and the forms of critical thinking that you're sort of investigating throughout all different aspects of your design practice. And so I think it's important for our audience for you to sort of introduce a little bit about your background, because I think that's really important to sort of set this up as we kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of your material concepts and projects.
Yeah, so I have a background in design. I graduated from the Design Academy in Eindhoven. And I graduated from a more conceptual design department. But in the Design Academy, there's not an interior department or fashion. Everything is more
Interdisciplinary,
and it's more way of working. And then you learn in the basic first year to learn to work with all the materials and different styles of a creative process and designing, and then you develop your own way. So
it's an interdisciplinary approach, but you obviously come to a point where you must streamline and you must kind of develop a theme or focus when it comes to developing sort of your thesis, I guess, or no?
Yeah, not necessarily. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. I work with undervalued or unconventional materials, but I graduated with both ceramics and with leather. So then that's also interdisciplinary. For people, it's sometimes hard. Oh, are you a ceramicist? Are you a potter? Are you a fashion designer? Are you?
It's difficult. I know. What are you? No,
Yeah.
I think it's difficult when you are liminally positioned between two different mediums, and both require two sort of sets of knowledges and skill sets, because you're working with hard and soft materials. But there are deep relationships between the two that I would imagine that allows for you to kind of build up this conversation, especially when you're working with discarded materials and unconventional. I don't know. I don't want to say unconventional concepts. It's more just how you're framing the use of your materials, because you're essentially allowing for yourself to incorporate some tradition within these, but you're sort of awakening them in a way through materials that are undervalued. You're not just kind of collecting or harvesting from I'm sure aspects you do need to bring some new materials and new things into things, but you're bringing in a different conversation in relation to how, when I think about the future of craft, do you view yourself as almost like an interpreter between these two languages? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because people position you and they're like, we don't understand what you do exactly. Are you this or you that? And can relate in a different way because of my background coming from fashion, but in textiles related. But I do a lot of installation work as well. And they're like, are you an artist? Are you a designer? What do you do? And I hate labels. Yeah. What I'm trying to get down to is it's really unfortunate that we are forced to put our ideas and our creativity into these boxes, because when you're investigating and you are immersed in process, which I can imagine that you like the process of what you're working with. And so when you get lost in that space, it's all relative. It just becomes, the problem solving and the creative thinking and solutions, it all just becomes one.
Yeah,
And
that's a way of looking or a way of thinking. And then the materials or the craft, that's also a medium, but it's not one, or it is a different knowledge with the head and the hands, and then together it becomes something else, or it can be communicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Sometimes it's hard to articulate, but I think it's unique in that we have to find our own space and be okay of what that means. And that sometimes it does involve educating other people in our communication of how we see ourselves in our own practice, right? So it's
but that's not static too. I mean, if, I can be a fashion designer if you want, and I can work with,
It's true. It's true. And I think it's important to be able to shapeshift in that regard. And the fact that I think you were able to study in an environment that's allowed for you to build up a really interesting skill set, which is very different than, I want to say, what's taught in a North American context, which is obviously where I studied and where I'm originally from, even though I'm currently based in London. But it's just, I find that really interesting from an educational standpoint. But I want to say that your practice, as I understand it, is one that considers resources, processes, and design outcomes carefully. And you do this through a process of examination that both physically and philosophically sort of highlights this emphasis on nature and life cycles. So the cyclical nature of all things. But you do it in such a poetic way, but at the same time, it transforms our understanding and what can be our relationship to materials. But what you beautifully illustrate or embody is that you invoke this way in how we can perceive beauty in all its various stages and forms. And your work seems to shine a light on these materials and processes in a way that, yes, some people might consider them taboo or make them uncomfortable. But I also feel that your work brings forth this sense of truth around controversial issues, we'll say, but it invites and it opens up this opportunity. And so I want to sort of begin with your project, Ventry, because this collection, which is made out of animal waste, a byproduct of the meat industry, which is important to highlight. Can you explain to our audience how you arrived at this discovery and perhaps describe the process? Because it's important that people understand what you've gone through to transform this, what your personal experience was, and at the same time, the outcome, because you've been able to discover something that not only is a viable, sustainable alternative to traditional forms of leather, but there's some unique features about this. And so can you share this with the audience?
Yeah, Ventry is a textured leather from a byproduct from the meat industry. So it's our cow stomachs that are tanned. So there's leathers made from it. So it's the cow has 4 different stomachs, and they all have a different role in the digesting process, and therefore they have different shapes and textures on the inside to increase the surface for the maximum absorption of water and other nutrients for the cow. And by turning this in a leather, it becomes a useful material with qualities comparable to normal leather, so it's strong and flexible and soft, but it has all these amazing natural textures and structures, and also round forms. So also again completely different than the normal hide leather. But I was also not familiar with cow stomachs before, so I saw them for the first time on a market in Italy when I was there on holiday. And in some regions, it's eaten, the cow stomach there.
And it's known as tripe. Is it called tripe in Italy, or is it tripa? Am I saying it?
Yeah.
Tripla? You see, I'm saying it the Canadian way. So
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, but the French also have tripe, and you have tripe as well. So that's it's all same.
Yeah.
And it was presented on ice, and it was boiled, so it was white structures on ice, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was maybe something from the sea, or
I can imagine
a sort of mushroom that sometimes has also the sponges also can have structures like that, can also be whitish. So I didn't know what it was, but I was really amazed by all these different structures, because some have more sort of a honeycomb netting structure, or ruffles or folds, or hairy structures, or scale, like almost like a fur, some parts. So it was whoa, what is this? And I thought, I need this as a designer. There must be a way to
Utilize it.
this. And to see how I can preserve it. So then I discovered that it were cow stomachs, and then I thought, okay, wow, interesting. And so I called the slaughterhouse. I say, hey, can I pick up some cow stomachs? And they said, sure.
I guess they probably wouldn't have thought it was weird.
That is their normal every day to slaughter.
I guess to sell multiple stomachs. I'm just trying to imagine what that would. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but I was super naive. I thought, wow, this is beautiful, cool. And so I went there, and these are places I also, you normally don't go or you don't see. And it has really specific aesthetics as well, such places. So
how did that have an impact on you? Did that experience going into the slaughterhouse, did it motivate you to want to, I guess, continue down this path?
Yeah, I mean, I had many moments where I thought, what am I doing, and what did I started, and that I just didn't see how I would bring this to a good end. But in this slaughterhouse, this is a world that is so hidden, and but it's part of everybody's life, or it's in so many products, or we use animals in so many ways, and this you never see. And it made an impact on me to see, and also with the people working there, to be in contact with them, and that is just their job. That's their daily ordinary. And to see the cows, also it's such a large animal, that I also feel then a lot of respect for this cow, and I'm really impressed. And then all the stomachs, they normally, so in the Netherlands where I'm from, it's not eaten locally, so rarely. That's not
no, I understand that. We don't really eat it in Canada either, so it's not something.
Yeah, you cannot buy it in a regular supermarket. No. So it's just either processed to dog food, or it's cleaned and shipped somewhere else where it is eaten, and then it's often China, or some parts of the stomachs, or some stomachs are not used at all, and then they're processed for biomass, so they generate energy out of it.
Right.
And these are very well, not on the food, but most of them are low value applications, which do not where the aesthetics or these qualities of this material aren't visible. So I wanted to, visiting in also the slaughterhouse, I wanted to bring this to another world. And as a designer, I follow then the whole chain, and that's also important for me, that I start with the cow and the slaughterhouse, and then go to where it is cleaned, and the tannery, the production for the sewing, and the design to a fair, or where it can come to an audience.
You just said something that I think is really important to highlight, and it's that your level of, I think, empathy in relation to your experience in being in this environment, and understanding what a big gift it is. I mean, it's one thing that for people that eat meat or whatever byproduct that people consume as a result of from the cow, or any animal that gives its life in that process, is that you are wanting to bring something that's invisible visible, right? You're wanting to kind of give it this space and this voice and this opportunity to kind of be valued ultimately.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in those
in that exchange, the duality. Yes.
Of what is visible and what's not, and what we prefer to not to be visible, but also inside and the outside, and beauty and disgust, and to have to look at these borders. That is what fascinates me also.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, I'm sure we could probably have a whole podcast just talking about that, but there's we won't get too deep in philosophical talk. I mean,
that comes back. That is something that I then look for. Yeah, and that's why sometimes my project, they also hint to this border, or some people could
The fact that you want to operate from the space of, I mean, it's ultimately a space of vulnerability for you, because you are taking this risk in a way to kind of bring forth the things that are, whether they're deemed controversial or just uncomfortable subject matter that no one wants to talk about.
Or people want to judge. That's also something. Because I also had people coming up to me very angry, or most people really like the project and are really positive with some. They say, oh, that I promote the meat industry and that I shouldn't do this, or that this system of this industrial slaughter or meat consumption, that it shouldn't be there, and that we also shouldn't work with it. And there's also with the sustainability, a cow is a sort of, with all the gases it produces, also a symbol of.
And yes, it is. There's a lot of factors within that, which I understand and I completely sympathize. But at the end of the day, right now, we do live in a civilization where this byproduct does exist. And I'm sure if it didn't exist, you probably wouldn't be working with it. You'd probably be still working within the same conceptual framework of how you work ultimately. But I think, as I understand it as a designer, I holistically believe in that we need to work with materials that exist. In the case of looking at resources, natural resources, whether it's an animal byproduct or something that from the agriculture industry that's using a lot of water and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's a lot of complex issues that we're having to address as designers. And the fact that this is a resource that it does exist, and as uncomfortable as it is, the thing is, it is something that is a solution, even if it's a temporary solution. But at the same time, when I think of Aboriginal practices and cultures that harvest the whole animal and they utilize everything, that still exist in small pockets of the world, but coming from Canada, I'm well aware of some of those traditional practices. They're not done on such a large scale, but they do it in a way that it's enough to provide for them and their community. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And when I think about the relationship of what you're doing, and you're doing it on at this point, even if you are planning to upscale it, we could talk about that in a minute, but there's still the fact is that to have this resource rot and to go to waste in a way that could actually probably eliminate a lot of, because what a lot of people don't realize, and I'm sure you could speak to this too, is that the types of cows that they breed for leather are very different than the ones that they breed for meat consumption. Depending on where it comes from the world.
The skins of these animals they use for meat, they have scratches and scars or insect bites. And so what do you do with those skins? So that's also, there's a huge amount of skins that
aren't utilized.
No demand for, also because luxury cars that used to be with leather interiors, there's now more demand also for non-animal products for the interior, and so this also becomes less popular. And then
because of these imperfections,
yeah, but this, I think, is also changed. That's in luxury.
Yes, and which I've always romanticized in a way, and I always see things that have these beautiful scars and these marks as beautiful, because they're just completely unique, and it shows that this came from an animal, as opposed to something that's so beautiful and pristine that looks like it came from a machine. Do you know what I mean?
People often don't want to be remembered that it was part of a living animal.
It's truth.
Because that's uncomfortable. And also people also they really like newness. So everything is shiny, and you are the one who makes the first scratch, and then it doesn't matter. But if you buy something and it already has a scratch, nobody wants to buy that. You are the one that wants to peel the plastic cover from the iPhone, and you're the first one to touch it. Yeah, that's a feeling that's so rewarding, to unpackage and to be the first.
Yes.
So this virginity of this material, which is nonsense, but yeah.
No, I again, it's probably a topic that we could continue talking about, but I've got more questions. So I just kind of want to go back a little bit, because I think for those that are listening, you were describing the four stomachs and the varying textures and what that looks and feels like. I wonder if you could just break that down a little bit. In your development of this process, have you figured out which of these textures works for better formations? I know that you've been producing a series of handbags out of these leathers, but at the same time, like, are you finding that you describe this honeycomb texture? Are there different performance properties or things around it that you're finding finding work better for some applications over others?
Yeah, for the applications, but also in the tanning process already. So I use three stomachs out of 4. So the fourth stomach, it's similar to the stomach of mammals with only one stomach. So as humans, it doesn't have these textures, and it's much longer in its shape. So
Does it come out quite smooth?
yeah, this is a smooth one.
Yeah.
This is the one that is least attractive. And with the tanning happens in rotation drums, and in this rotation, this very long shape, which also have with long things in the washing machine, it gets in a knot and it sort of rips itself.
So it's pretty delicate.
Yeah, it also has a different tissue or texture. It's not suitable for tanning, and then it's not that pretty either. So I focus on the first 3 stomachs. And the first one, the rumen, they're the largest of the 4. This is also that's also temporary storage for the food and can contain.
Right. I was reading a little bit about that. So the rumen is where when the cow chews the grass, it's like is that the first stop that the grass goes into their feed goes into is that right?
Yeah, it's the first stop.
Yeah.
And what cows do, they bring it up again and then they chew again.
Yeah.
They have this process because this grass is really
hard to digest.
Yeah, so that's why they have 4. So the first one, it can contain also 120 kilograms of grass. So that's a really large one. And so this is, if you talk about applications, this one is the most suitable for larger things.
Larger use, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So for upholstery or for larger bags, this stomach has a more hairy or scale-like structure. And some parts it doesn't have these structures, and it's more like a wrinkled skin. It reminds me more of elephant or landscape. And then because all these textures are natural, there are also these natural gradients and in between parts of this sort of texture landscape. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And then
I know it's kind of bizarre, but I mean, at the same time, in a sense, I don't mean bizarre in a negative way. It's just the fact you don't think of these sort of textures coming out from the stomach. Because I've seen photos, and I'm going to share those photos in the promotion of this episode. But I think people need to realize, like, not just from the actual visual itself, but the way that you describe it.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating that this was the strongest in evolution, and that this grew that the cow functions this way. That this was the best for the cow to have these amazing structures, because the next stomach is much smaller, and that is the one with the honeycomb netting, and this is what find most people the most appealing one.
Yeah, and again, I will share the visual because it's stunning. You just never would have imagined that kind of texture would come from, again, from a cow's stomach.
It looks a bit like a coral. Maybe that's something you can compare it with.
Yes.
The sea. Yeah. The third stomach has it's in Dutch it's called a book stomach, and in Chinese it's a money stomach. So it has all these leaves. It has this as pages from a book. So it has these leaves, these ruffles, and then this also has little textures on it. And when this is tanned, it looks like
it's almost like tentacles, like the way that you're describing it to me. Do you know what I mean? Like when you see, like, yeah, anyhow.
Yeah. So this one has a lot of personality, I would say. So in applications, this one is very outspoken. The other ones, it's a textured leather, but this one really has all these structures.
Yeah, that's really quite the variety. And I think there's no sort of value placement. Obviously, you've had this in your product development and material development, figuring again out what works best for what application. And I thank you for sharing how you've been able to negotiate that. But because you get all these really interesting, let's say 3 pools of variances that tells us this wonderful story, this narrative, not just in relation to, this material resource, but the fact that, that this, how do I say it? Just this mystery, there's this mystery around this organ or this system that once existed in this animal is able to, it's almost like this underwater sea life within, I'm just kind of have a bit of an imagination, but I've never known anything like it. And the fact that your work has this opportunity for us to have this discussion discussion. And I'm sure some people might be upset, like you've addressed, there are people that will have issues with, but at the same time, when it comes to the understanding, I think the anatomy of an animal, no different than understanding the anatomy of any sentient being, it teaches us a lot more that we have no idea of. And if anything, I think that what you're doing is doing a lot more good than I would say negative. And I'm not just saying that from one designer to the next. I think there's a lot more that you obviously can continue to further communicate through these materials. And so I wonder, speaking of some issues, so what challenges or issues have you faced in working with this resource?
That it's different from normal high leather. So that's also obvious when you bring a material to another world, to tanning, and it's not flat like a normal hide leather. It is different thicknesses and structures, which leather can be sliced in perfect thicknesses, and so that it's new, and it comes then back also with the leather working craft and their machines, and then it's just different and needs new ways of working. So that has been very challenging also with starting from the beginning with cleaning the stomachs, because the fat needs to be removed, and normally a machine will do that, and because all these round forms and the different thicknesses, it doesn't fit machines, and so you also in the application you have to be creative as well of what kind of world fits. So now I'm also working with a fur machine, because fur you also have to consider hairs, and this also has structures, can be maybe compared with hairs, and this way I'm looking at how to apply the fur craft on this instead of the normal leather.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because in my understanding of visiting old furrier factories in Montreal, in Canada, because of the pile and the way that things need to be skived, and skiving is this process of shaving for people that don't know what that is, and I'll put that in my definition of terms in relation to this episode. But I get that, because you're working with the circular, and you have to think about that there's a lot of different elements and challenges in that regard, aside from, I guess, people's, if they didn't know this came from the stomach of a cow, do you know what I mean, aside from whatever association, the design challenge, taking something 3D ultimately, and having to essentially deconstruct it, the trial and error, I think, of learning what works and what doesn't work, I can imagine is rewarding, but I'm sure, just creatively speaking, but your challenges does resonate because of the inconsistencies of what you're working with, in a way, right?
Yeah, but that's also because we talked about disciplines and interdisciplinarity before. It's also really fun to bring different knowledges together and different crafts together, and then you are able to make something new or to inspire each other, and that's really great.
Yeah, because I think that in what you're working with, because of your knowledge and your interdisciplinary background, what you would consider limitations and what you're working with really does kind of, again, it breathes new life into something that I'm sure really makes you extremely curious all the time. At least it would for me.
Yeah, but that's also the way to be inspired or to wonder with this material. It shows, or it learns us something from about the cow, but it evokes a fantasy. It also an imagination. So it could also be a skin of a sort of a reptile or a more fantasy animal, and that's also when I see the stomachs, often see it also, they have their own personalities, and I can imagine,
I can tap into exactly what you're thinking about, and I also think of these spaces as like these, it's almost like a vehicle when you think about, what travels through this space, and we know what cows eat, we have a sense of, what their nutrition is, but how that has come to shape its form and function and its intended use, but then how that translates into what you do with it and its application and intended use. And I think that's, again, coming back to that poetic and philosophical side of things. I'm so intrigued, and I would just love to see it in person. That's That's my only thing right now. I'm seeing these images, I'm reading about you, and I really do find it quite fascinating. This brings me to my next question. So from the time that you started working with this material, what has it come to mean to you? I mean, you kind of already illustrated your beginning and how it, perhaps you're a bit naive around things, and then you went to the slaughterhouse, and then just through this experience of working with this material, what has it come to mean to you? Does it mean any different to you now than it does in the beginning?
Yeah, of course, because in the beginning I knew nothing, and I was overwhelmed. So I was naive. I thought, oh, nice. I looked up sort of prehistoric tanning things, methods on YouTube. I thought this is great. Yeah, there are many great videos on YouTube on how to tan yourself, and then I thought, okay, I get some stomachs, I put them in a bath, and just at my studio at the time, which I shared with 2 other people,
which I'm sure was interesting.
Yeah, we're still friends, but that's not because of that. But so it was also completely new world to me, and sort of by this crazy naivety of that I saw potential in this beauty I saw in it. It became really, the projects I do become really dear to me, because you create something, you bring it to life, and especially now working with the stomach for 3-4 years now, it's really dear to me. When I'm in the slaughterhouse, and I did now recently, I visited again also to look at different ways how we can clean them and improve the tanning process, and then you start from the beginning, and I'm there with my stomachs. People say, "Oh, you and your little stomachs," the sort of cutification of something that's really can look really horrible, especially when raw. So really a part of. I feel that's really a part of.
No, I can absolutely imagine. Yeah, just speaking of other materials and processes, you have a very sort of alchemic approach to how you transform various resources, and they all are clearly inspired and derived from your interest in the process of decay, and again life cycles related to nature, and discarded or detritus materials that are a result of this, again, life cycle process. And I just in observing and doing a bit of research about you, and this makes sense now that I've spoken to you, because you talk about your interdisciplinary background, and I wanted to kind of get a sense of, because you do work in ceramics and you've worked with sort of the use of bone ash, for example, in the making of ceramic forms, and you've also explored other textile formations. One in particular, you were working with human hair and commodifying Mars, and reading the concept for it, I wanted to kind of know a bit more. So I wonder if you could describe this textile and for the audience and explain what inspired this development.
I was dreaming about human life on Mars, and then there's nothing on Mars, so there's no materials, no agricultural possible, and then I thought using the human body as a resource for materials. And I also imagined that a very high-tech environment with spaceships and everything really, really clean and cold. And then I thought the humans, future generations of Mars, will use their own hair in making textiles. And then I imagined also that future generations will only have Mars as a reference for inspiration. So I also made the textile. I felted it, needle felt with human hair. Inspirations of the Mars landscape. Yeah.
Yes. Was it a mechanical needle felting, or did you use like a small little machine? You didn't do it all by hand, I hope.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And then but I did it together with other people too. I mean, it's fun also. Yeah.
Of course. Well, and that makes sense, because that's interesting, because when you think about in relation to what you were just describing when it comes to making textiles, it is a community effort. And I mean, the history of textiles has always been a community effort, but the way that you just described that you had help, put that together in a way that relates to what it would be like on Mars, you're definitely going to need more than one hand to produce that human-made. How did you describe that again? It was like a human sacrifice, but it's like
no,
it's not like that's not what I want to say. But the fact that you're harvesting from your own
body. Yeah, or what I say, the resource maybe.
That's better.
Yeah,
Don't worry, I'll edit that out because I don't want that coming across. Oh dear, what have I got myself into? So are there other materials or processes that you are looking to further develop?
For now, I'm still with the stomachs. I can grow there and make that still. There's a lot more to develop, to discover also. Yeah, so it's only currently that I now have the fur machine, and I'm what you can do, you can make sort of seamless round forms with it. With this machine, it's different than a normal sewing machine where the needle goes. So the needle of a fur machine goes from the back to the front instead from top to bottom, up and down.
So you can work with it almost like more like I know what you're saying, but I'm just trying to imagine what that looks like.
Yeah. So you don't stitch something flat on top of each other, but it can be joined in a sort of seamless way. Mm-hmm. And this way you can
create on the round, sew on the round, or construct on the round.
Yeah, and now I'm looking for a new form language for the stomachs because they are round, but of course they need to be opened to be able to clean them, to get them inside out.
Right.
And then with the tanning, after tanning, they are dried and then they are stretched. But they're still round forms, but then also a bit stretched, so they come something else. And then want to approach them as a pattern piece to see how they become round again.
Obviously, because you're still knee deep in research and development with this resource, and you've already sort of mentioned some of the collaborative processes that you're using. So that I'm assuming that you are working and you have collaborations with some other industry partners to help you further this development. Can you speak to some of this?
Yeah, of course. Because in my studio, I'm often alone, but I can do everything myself. So then I work with craftsmen, or I start with the butchers, and then with the tanners. I also don't have this technical background in tanning so there we work together and that's always really fun because it's a new material to everybody.
So it's not just learning for you, it's learning for others too, right?
For craftsmen too, and then that's a new challenge, and in this way we can find new solutions, and this sparks also inspiration for different projects.
Mm-hmm. And
also for them, so that's always really fun to find overcome the challenges.
And I think that's important just to mention briefly, because obviously throughout all of this, you're not, how do I say this? You've been teaching other people to see what you see in a way. You have that aha moment, obviously, which you did, when you were on your little trip to Italy and you saw these beautiful forms that led you down the path of working with this resource. But it's teaching you a lot, but it's also inspiring and teaching other people. And I think that's a huge gift. That doesn't happen to every designer, I don't think.
That's also what I want also with my projects to inspire, and
that takes a certain kind of leadership. I believe this. So what knowledge gap or misinformation do you think exists around using discarded waste materials that you think the audience should be made aware of?
Well, my projects are not about recycling, and a lot of projects I see that use discarded materials are about recycling, and they use recycling aesthetics. So they use this world, and I think I would like to go beyond that, to use it because it is a waste or not doesn't have a high value application, then I see it a lot in different materials. Then it's all glued together or pressed, new materials that is first grinded. And then I went with my interdisciplinary background, but it's also curiosity to see what are the qualities of a material and in which world I can bring it and where it can be applied, and how to make a new story and a new life or a new project that it becomes something on its own. And
I think what I'm understanding what you're saying is that, I mean, it's what you're doing is you're really bringing awareness, which is, again, it has a ripple effect. Obviously, as I mentioned before, you're inspiring other people to see things and learn things in new ways. And because it's your, I think, infectious curiosity for not just with this particular resource that we've talked about, but in some of your other material explorations, which I hope our audience, takes a look at some of your other projects on your website, which I'll make those links available. And you are creating sort of a larger awareness as a whole, not just within the design community. I think it's impacting other stakeholders who are very much involved in and have necessary roles to kind of play and participate in allowing for this to be part of your longevity and success in moving this whole project forward.
And I think that's also the beauty of design or art, that it can with a function or with an aesthetic or a beauty can seduce and tell a story or inspire. That's also why, for me, also the application is so important of the handbags, or a different application. Then people are first interested in the handbag, and then then they wonder about the material and the structures, and then comes the story. I can be also bold, and I'm really much in love with the cow stomach. But it's not something that has to be delicate, also communicated.
Well, and the one thing I think that you're doing beautifully, and again, I'll share some images, is that you really are honoring the texture and the material, because of, we've described what these materials look like and what they the potentialities of how they perform, but because you don't want to disrupt, that, because it's its own story. And I can see that you've taken that into consideration and how you're choosing to continue to apply it. And I have this question just because, and it's kind of a rather big question in the sense that not just in relation to this resource, but what ultimately do you want people to know about your work? What drives and motivates your passion for what you're doing? That ultimately is what you want people to know about your work, and not necessarily.
No, that's something different, right?
Yeah.
What fascinates me and what other people get from it. I'm really in love with it. I really enjoyed these cow stomachs, but that's not something that maybe interests somebody else. It's more like what it does for them, or for me. I get a lot of energy of making something new, or to have a moment that I can see coming in everything together. I have so much rewards in the process, and hidden beauties and presence. But for an audience,
you don't think they want to know that?
Oh, I also think they're different things.
It's true,
because I really enjoy also walking in the slaughterhouse, but I don't think that there are many people that like to go with me, or because I also have people who want to help me or are interested, and it's just also something impressive in a lot of different things, also with the senses, with the smells and the sense, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I should approach it different, but
no, I don't think so. I think that's something that's very personal to you, and I think you should allow that
very personal moments in the process, and that I really enjoy doing. But then for the audience, maybe how they can relate to it is more important to them, with their own
relationship, I guess, to
materials or to value. So yeah, that's a really important theme to me. The value, when do we perceive something valuable, and when isn't it perceived like that? And that is something I would like to question and to inspire my audience with.
Beautiful. You articulated exactly what I think is at the core essence of what people should know about you as a designer, but how that's sort of threaded all throughout all of your material concepts. And
yeah, because this applies to everything. Yeah, and
absolutely.
it's not only to one. It's not one method or material or craft or an application.
Absolutely. So as we slowly get to the end here, is there anyone that you feel that's in your community, or, it doesn't have to be textile related, but essentially in your knowledge and experience, is there anyone that's doing meaningful work, innovative work that you think is contributing to a material revolution?
Yeah, there are many great initiatives, but I find it difficult to pinpoint an inspiration or someone.
Anything that, like, what is making you curious right now outside of your own? I know we can all get caught in our own material bubbles, right?
Yeah.
But is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to that you may know or may not know? Someone from your community? Could be any discipline that's working in a material practice that you want to kind of highlight that you think is doing really meaningful and interesting work.
For now, I also look outside my own disciplines and what really inspires me. Also, but more on the fantasy level and the animism. Then I'm really inspired by Jan Swankmajer.
Mm-hmm.
He's animator. He makes films, and I think that's also a way what I see also in materials and in designs is also this animism and this soul, that it has a life or a personality, and that's a way of looking. And I think this is an inspiration or a fantasy, but it's also a respect and what I think is very important and what we need. So this respect also for me for the cow, but also seeing the stomachs as something on its own. But this applies to all materials or objects we have or carry for, and things we repair and that are meaningful to us. So I think I think that's inspired to look at things like that. And that is maybe not very revolutionary, but I think that's something we need for also a sustainable future, with respect and with curiosity to the world around us. And take care.
And I couldn't agree with you any more than what you just said, because of the fact that I do actually think it's important to have your own pool of resources of what informs your critical thinking, because the fact that you just were able to describe what that is and how that ties into your conceptual approach to how not just materials, but just how you see the world and how it's multifaceted is what I'm trying to say. And I think you've really pinpointed, I think, what to me, it is revolutionary, even if it seems, I don't want to say it's simplistic, because it's not, because it may seem like, oh, I didn't invent the telephone, I didn't, or any of those sort of things, but it's actually what you've just described is you've been able to distill the steps that are necessary in order to contribute to the problem solving, to the solutions that are needed in the present and in the future. So I do think that's revolutionary. I think it's these subtle acts and these moments of self-reflection in relation to working with materials that allows for those insights to emerge. So I really thank you for saying that. Is there anything upcoming? I know the world is shut down in so many ways, and I know that you're probably plugging away in your studio and pushing through things, but what's coming up for you that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so it has been a really challenging year for me, because I thought I would conquer the world this year, and with me so many. So that will take some time still, but it will come. This caused also an existential emptiness, and I filled it with a master's. So I'm studying again, and I'm teaching at the Fashion Academy. So I'm both a teacher and a student.
Busy?
Yeah, I'm and then I have I follow doing artistic research. So I'm developing work and researching and writing at the same time. So I think that is something I'm growing in, and what people also will see from me in the future. And next to that, I'm working really hard on developing the leather better and to improve the tanning process, to make that more sustainable, to be able to upskill a little more, to make these bags available also.
Wonderful. Well,
So that's everything at the same time, of course. But
unfortunately,
this
that's what happens, isn't it? But I'm really happy to hear that you are pushing forward with your material development, and then also it does allow for you to do what you're doing, to put it into context, into education, because so much is changing that needs to be applied in higher education right now in relation to practices and materials and resources, and embedding more holistic approaches to sustainability in through that design process, right? It is something that needs to be looked at on all levels, every angle, every nook and cranny. It's not something that you can just have one course on anymore.
No.
Right? So
no, but it's really topical, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I asked you to share a textile with me that has meaning to you, because this is sort of an exercise. Like I taught for 15 years, and I use this as a tool for students to introduce themselves. So, because yeah, and I'm sure you've gone through the motions, or everybody like first day of class, you introduce yourself, and it can be kind of redundant and boring, but also vulnerable too. So I always ask students to bring a meaningful textile or a garment that meant something to them. And so that's how they had to introduce themselves. And so on this podcast, I ask every guest to introduce something that's meaningful to them.
Yes. So I found it difficult to choose, of course, because so many garments or textiles I take care of or that mean a lot to me, and memories or come from people I care. And I also thought it was really intimate. I also discussed with my boyfriend the other day all the garments and textiles that meant a lot to me, and he said, "Wow, this is intimate," and then to show this all, or to really stand still with that and talk. So but today I brought Fosje with me, so little fox.
Yes, and I'll share that image with everybody. Yes.
And this comes from an auntie or a bit further away in the family, and she was this lady which has all the beautiful leather gloves, but also sort of this femininity that is from another time. And she also had a fox and a fox fur, but this fox has a head too, and a tail and legs with little nails.
It's the full fox. For everyone that's just listening, can't see the photo right now. It's the full fox. Yeah.
It's the full fox, but then flat. It's more 2D, so it's not a full.
It's not like a taxidermied. Yeah, I know.
It's not taxidermied, but it was this.
We call them a stole. Do you call them a stole?
Stole, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine this lady is wearing this foxes, and well, I was a little child, and then this came into she brought that, and this came from her, and I was really fascinated. It was sort of like a pet, but then not alive, but also not dead, or it was something that can also come to life, and different than my cuddles or the teddy bears or the things around.
Yeah.
And it's also not, so it was more also sort of a cuddle, and it has also this clip under its head, so you could clip it to your coat.
Right.
But this gives it also a bit of a mouth or something. So it would have really this, where it would always look at you as if it was a pet or a living animal, and it was so extremely soft. And we had a cat at home, and this cat was not allowed to sleep in my bed. But this little fox was. And then I cuddled so much with this fox that his back completely felted, like
Oh,
felt the sort of the
yes.
hairs, they
It
stick
mattered.
together.
Yes, yes, yes.
And we played with Foxy, and it's because she looks weird because it's sort of flat,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's sort of flat to the animal, but then with all this, it
Character.
still had it had so much character. And as a child, you immediately see a personality, and you see an interaction, or you imagine a person with your cuddles, or the world around you. And then this is this imagination where I spoke of earlier, what I think Foxy has. And she's not that beautiful anymore, and she also lost her tail, but that doesn't matter because the fantastic Mr. Fox also lost his tail. And yeah, she's a character, and still
And she's still with you. Well, I think that's a beautiful story. And I also think that it really does kind of end our conversation quite magically, in the sense that you really it's allowed for aspects of our conversation to kind of end in this very, again, poetic, but
playful also.
playful. And it just really does speak to your own sensibility and sensitivity to materials and your environment and their history in these stories, and this level of fantasy and animation that you kind of alluded to.
And it's also, some people find it morbid to have a dead animal in the bed, or to cuddle with a fur. Or fur is also a really sensitive subject too, and especially when we talked about it earlier, when the animal's still recognized in the product. But I thought with this imagination, there was so much fun to have her around, and that also brings a respect.
Yeah, and I also think you bring a human quality to it, in the sense that your empathy, how do I say it? It's that's sort of missing from, I mean, again, we could probably talk for hours, and I know we're tying up here, but but it's just, I think you really are saying something and reading between the lines. And again, it comes down to you are bringing forth a truth. You're not forcing people to be uncomfortable, but I think it's something that has existed in different ways throughout our human history, and it's taboo to, of course, have something like this now because of what it means. But at one point in time, it was celebrated, but it was, again, a different time. And so thank you so very much for sharing that with me. I really look forward to, again, continuing to follow your work and everything that you're doing. And I really appreciate you again for taking time to speak with me today. We're a little bit over, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure to speak to you. And I hope to meet and show you the material.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. Sounds good. All right, take care. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of The Material Revolution. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, or perhaps you may want to suggest a topic, material innovation, or an expert that you would like to hear on an upcoming episode, please reach out to us via email at info@thematerialrevolution.com, or you can contact us through any of our social media channels. If you haven't done so already and have enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to the show via Apple Podcasts or from any platform that you're choosing to listen to this from. We would appreciate it if you could rate, review, and help us spread the word by sharing this podcast with friends. And if you would like to support this podcast further, consider visiting our Patreon page and make a pledge. You can do this by accessing the link that's located in the episode notes of this podcast, or you can visit our website or any of our social media channels where we will have that link made available. Well, that concludes our show for today. We hope that you left this episode feeling more curious about what can be done with textiles. Music for this podcast is provided by Interior Design, composed by Rob Mathrew. If you dig it and you want to hear more, please visit the link included in the show notes or visit our website for more information about his work. You can also find images from today's episode located on our website, www.thematerialrevolution.com, and other show highlights are available on our Instagram, Facebook page, and YouTube channel.